everyone, I'm Miss Lydia from the Boston Library. Thank you for joining me. Our craft project for today is going to be a floral wreath made out of old egg cartons. So you're going to need several cardboard egg cartons. You want to make sure that you're using the cardboard ones and not the styrofoam. The styrofoam will just break as you're making your flowers. The other supplies that we need are some kind of a wreath frame. So I have an actual wreath frame here. You can use a metal coat hanger that you bend into a circle. Basically anything that you can make into a circle as your base. You could even use something like a cardboard cutout circle if you wanted to. You can make this as big or as small as you'd like. Since I'm using this wreath frame, I'm also going to cover it with some yarn just to give myself a more solid base to build off of. So I have some green yarn that I'm going to wrap around this. In addition to my egg cartons for my flowers, I'm going to need scissors to cut those flowers out with and paints to decorate them. So an assortment of acrylic paints, paintbrushes, foam paintbrushes work really well for these. It helps to get a really good solid coverage in one coat. And then any colors that you want to make your flowers. Depending on how involved you want to get, you can also have some add-ons. So I have some sparkly sequins here that I'm going to use as some of my centers, or I even found some of these little tiny flowers that I might use as some of the centers of my flowers once I have these all cut out. And then you're going to need some type of glue to fix your flowers to your wreath. Hot glue works the best. If you're working with small children, remember to use a low temperature hot glue or a different type of glue, and then just be patient and let it dry. Our first step is to cut our egg cartons apart. So I'm going to cut off both the top and this flap here. And you can set these aside because, again, depending on the design that you want to go for, you may use these pieces as leaves. Then I'm left with this, and I'm going to cut apart each cup. The sharper your scissors on this step, the better. But it's okay if some of them rip too, because you can redesign that as you're cutting them. Once I have them cut into twos, I'm going to separate those out as well. And then you can see how these might start to look like flowers. From here, I'm going to cut them into a variety of shapes. So some of them have kind of a spikier look. I'm going to go for sharper edges on those. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim up all of those rougher edges. So I'm going to make several that have this shape with my pointier petals. One nice thing with these pointier shapes is you can also layer them. So I can take two and stack them together, and then I get more of like a tulip shape with more petals. Most of your flowers are going to end up with 4 petals. On some of the shorter ones, you can cut more of a loop and go much smaller with your flowers. And I'll end up with some that have even just 3 petals that are much shorter. So you want to create a variety of shapes. Some of them will be tall, some of them will be shorter, rounded edges, spiky edges, whatever you can get to make it look like a flower. You're going to want to cut out a lot of these. So depending on how many of them you want to be double layered, that's going to impact the number of cups that you need to cut out and the size of your frame. So you're going to want enough to cover your frame and then to add additional layers in on that as well. I'm going to go ahead and cut out at least 30 of them. When I have all of my flowers cut out, I'm going to paint them. So I'm going to start with my yellow. Again, you can do whatever assortment, whatever color flowers you want to do. And I'm using a metal pie plate here as my base. That's just nice because you can wash the paint right off of it. And I'm going to take my paintbrush and just go all the way over, outside and inside. What I found is easiest for this is to coat the outside first, set them all upside down, let that dry, and then go back through and coat the inside. You want to make sure that you get up on the edges as well, because those are going to be facing up. So you want to get a good solid coat on all of those surfaces. And then you can set those aside to dry. As my flowers are drying, I'm going to prepare my wreath base. So I'm going to take my piece of string and I'm going to just basically choose a spot and tie it on. Once I have that tied securely on, I'm going to just loop it all the way around. So this takes a little bit of time, but you're just going to continue to go all the way around and cover your wreath. Once my entire wreath is wrapped, I'm going to cut a little extra here at the end. And I still have that string sticking out from the first loop that I tied. So I'm going to tie it to that. And then this is also where I'm going to make my hanger. So that extra piece of string, I'm going to make a loop and tie it again. And then I have my hanger there as well. So I'm going to trim those extra edges just a little bit closer. They should be pretty well covered up by the time I'm finished. And there's my wreath base. Once I have my wreath frame all set to go and my flowers are all dried, I did go ahead and added some centers into them with just some yellow and oranges. You don't have to do this step if you're going to be using sequins or buttons or any type of other decorative item on the centers. It's just an option if you want a little bit more detail. I'm also going to figure out which of my flowers I want to be double cups. So I have a few of those already set. And then I'm going to randomly attach them. So I want to make sure that my colors are all mixed in. I have several different colors. I'm just going to go with a random grouping. Taking my hot glue, I'm going to put a big dab of glue on the back and just start to fix them to my wreath base. And you're going to want to stagger, so you don't want them all lined up. You're going to kind of go back and forth a little bit with them. Once your flowers are all done and fixed to your wreath frame, it's going to look like this. Then it's up to you how much detail you want to add. So you could add leaves, you can add buttons, pom-poms, any kind of sparkle that you want, or you can leave it just like this. I had one egg carton that was green, and so I cut some little leaf shapes out of that I'm going to stick around in some of these slightly bigger spaces here. Same process, just going to dab a glue on there and then stick those down. Adding those leaves on there just adds another little layer of dimension to it. And I'm going to take a couple of these small flowers and add them into the centers, just on a few of them. Then I'm going to clean out those strands of glue. And now my egg carton floral wreath is all finished. Remember, you can get as complex on this as you want. You can make it as big or as small as you'd like. You could even have, if you had a wrapped frame, you wouldn't have to fill in the entire thing. You could just do a bunch of flowers down at one end, and that would look perfectly fine that way. You can add lots of bling if you want, or none. You can make it as colorful as you want. So it's a very flexible project. If you have any questions, let us know. I hope you enjoyed this project, and we will see you next week.